Welcome to the Next Big Idea Daily. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat. Make sure you're signed up for our free newsletter using the link in the episode notes so you can get these big ideas right in your inbox. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but therapy speak has gone mainstream. On social media, in personal and professional communication, you might hear phrases like, "I'm triggered," "That's my trauma," "I'm setting a boundary." But as common as that kind of language is becoming, it's not necessarily helpful, especially for those experiencing true mental illness. Joe Nucci is a licensed psychotherapist, author, and content creator whose new book, Psychobabble, takes aim at the myths and misconceptions of therapy culture. Joe joins us with some of his big ideas right after this quick break.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent, savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
At Talus, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talus, you can secure what matters most. With Talus industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talus to protect what matters most. Applications, data, and identities. That's Talus, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talusgroup.com/cyber.
Hello, this is Joe Nucci. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, content creator, and writer. My book, Psychobabble, Viral Mental Health Myths and the Truths to Set You Free, explores 40 different mental health misconceptions popular in society today. I'm going to share 5 key insights from the book that challenge some of the assumptions we've absorbed from therapy culture. Because the problem isn't that therapy has gone mainstream. It's that, in the process, we've forgotten what therapy is actually for. Insight number 1. Psychotherapy heals mental illness, not problems of living. Therapy works, but it doesn't work for everything. Somewhere along the way, as mental health got destigmatized, we started to believe we could apply therapy to more than just mental illness. We started to believe it could save us from more than just depression, trauma, and addiction. We started to believe that it could make us the ideal partner, the perfect parent, or help us achieve profound psychological comfort in all aspects of life. Unfortunately, there is no pill and no therapeutic intervention that can erase all of life's struggles. And yet, therapy is often marketed as a cure-all for anything life throws at you. Of course, there's nothing wrong with going to therapy to vent or if you're bored or lonely. Furthermore, therapy can be quite effective in helping you with subclinical or non-diagnostic problems, like dating issues or struggles with a life transition. But there is a big difference between needing therapy and being able to benefit from it. The truth is that knowing where that line is can be really helpful in terms of maximizing how to get the most benefit from your therapy journey. It makes you a smarter consumer of therapy services and better at navigating all sorts of self-help misinformation. Maybe you need to go to therapy, or maybe the answer to the problem you're trying to solve can be found elsewhere. If you're not sure, speaking to a qualified therapist can help you figure that out. Insight number 2. Mental health is about agency, not identity. One of the dangers of therapy culture going viral is that mental health has become a form of identity and social currency. While it's a good thing mental health has become destigmatized, in certain places, it's actually popularized. People collect labels like badges, flaunting their self-awareness. I'm anxiously attached. I'm neurodivergent. I'm an empath. In the book, I share a patient's story that is all too common. She could articulate every piece of her psychological history. She was practiced at naming her emotions and fluent in therapy speak. But she wasn't changing. She wasn't healing. She was stuck and suffering from it. She didn't need more self-awareness. While becoming self-aware is often the first step, the magic of therapy isn't about the analysis. It's about translating that insight into action. It is about having hard conversations, naming her needs, and making the call she'd been avoiding for weeks. Mental health shouldn't be about figuring out what you are. It's about being able to transform your attachment style, optimizing your life around neurodivergency, or harnessing your empathy in an adaptive way. In short, it's about building your capacity to be better. Diagnosis can be helpful, but it's a doorway, not a destination. A diagnosis is useful in the sense that it informs a treatment plan. Holding on to your diagnosis as an identity without building the capacity for agency is just taking extra steps to stay exactly where you are in life. This is not the promise of the mental health field. The promise is to be able to transform what you can and accept the rest as problems of living. Insight number 3. Therapists are not value neutral. Therapists are taught to be non-judgmental, but non-judgmental doesn't mean value-free. Every therapist brings a worldview into the room. They have their own pasts, their own politics, and their own values. A bad therapist will pretend that they are perfectly neutral. This kind of therapist is blissfully unaware of how their personal lives are impacting the work you are trying to accomplish in the session. A good therapist will be aware they are not a blank slate. They are self-aware enough to consider how they might say something that's more about them than about you or why you're seeking their help. They will withhold sharing when it's not clinically appropriate. But a great therapist can be simultaneously aware of how their past or personal values might influence them, while honoring that your past and life philosophies may differ. They may even talk about their differences to assist in your healing. The unfortunate truth is that some therapists feel emboldened to let their personal worldview encroach on their patient's worldview. Some therapists see themselves as activists, advancing a certain agenda. It could be political or philosophical. It might mean encouraging a client to end a relationship, label a parent as toxic, or reframe social dynamics as systemic harm. Sometimes that's warranted, but sometimes it's projection. Insight number 4. Tragedies don't always result in trauma. Trauma is real, but so is the casual misuse of the term. The misuse has real consequences because not everything bad that happens to you is a trauma. In fact, it's inaccurate to say that events are traumatic in themselves, because the truth is that 2 people can get into the same car accident and one will develop PTSD and the other one will not. The truth is a trauma response is not about the past. It's about the present moment and your current relationship to that thing that happened to you. Sometimes people move forward without assigning their suffering a trauma diagnosis. And that's not repression, it's capacity. By insisting that everyone has trauma, we risk flattening a wide range of emotional experiences into one narrow framework. We must consider dynamics of grief, growth, and the full range of negative human experiences that shape our lives. Disappointment, regret, embarrassment, and heartbreak are hard, but they are not necessarily traumatic. In fact, calling them trauma can subtly reinforce the idea that we are fragile and need clinical intervention to process every difficulty. This rebranding is surely good for therapists who want a steady stream of patients, but the idea culturally undermines resilience and turns the lens inward in ways that are often disempowering. Insight number 5. Therapy speak can be medicine or a weapon. One of the best things about therapy is that sometimes when you name something, when something becomes conscious through language, that thing no longer has power over you. I've seen firsthand how being able to name trauma or abuse can provide relief almost instantly. I've personally experienced the agency I've gained from being able to articulate a dynamic that was previously ineffable. But here's the rub. If language can heal us, it can also hurt us. A patient once said, "I'm drawing a boundary," right after cutting off a friend without explanation. Was it a boundary? Or was it a way to avoid a hard conversation using wellness vocabulary? He gaslit me sometimes means he disagreed with me. I'm dysregulated becomes shorthand for, I don't want to talk about this. We think we're speaking the language of healing. Sometimes we're just dressing up our defenses. Sometimes using psychology jargon is just a logical fallacy, an appeal to authority. When we do this in a way that allows us to be more disconnected from ourselves and from each other, that is the opposite of the promise of the mental health field. Learning these concepts is a little bit like learning a new language. At the beginning, it's important to stay rigid with your grammar and pronunciation. Over time, as you become more fluent, it's less about the words you use and more about how you use them. It's not about labeling, gaslighting correctly or incorrectly. It's about knowing how to handle it when somebody disagrees with you and knowing what to do if someone is trying to gaslight you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, everyone, you can get a copy of Psychobabble using the link in the episode notes. Now, if you got something out of today's show, we hope you'll leave us a rating and a review so others can find it. That's our show for the day. Hope to see you tomorrow.